You strike me as someone who really pays attention, who observes. What can you tell me about what you have observed about the inner journey during this at-home time? What have you noticed about your inner journey?
I think what it has forced me to do, and I think when you and I first spoke about us meeting together here today, it forced me to rethink what the inner journey actually is. Because before I can characterize something, and I think before any of us can characterize something, we need to define what it means for us. And I spoke with my wife about this, and her definition was very similar to mine, which was, well, the inner journey is largely a spiritual journey of expanding one's consciousness, et cetera, not to be glib about that. But when I then thought about it further, what I came to is where I am right now, which is that the inner journey is really something that happens underneath our skin. It is within our bodies. So if it's within our bodies, then I turn to a framework that I'm sure you've heard before, which works for me, which is I think of the inner journey in terms of the inner journey of mind, emotion, body, and spirit.
Right.
And so where I am, and quite frankly, where I think my family is right now, is just taking advantage of those levers in the best way that we can.
Love that. I love that you've referenced also that your family is with you on your inner journey. Tell me more about that.
Well, I'm not going to pretend that my nearly 10-year-old daughter is mano a mano with me on this inner journey, but let's just say that even though she doesn't follow my recommended diet precepts or exercise precepts, she's receptive, she understands, she sees how my wife, and to a greater extent, I role model these behaviors. And I think as she gets older, it will therefore not be as big a leap for me to bring her further into the fold. And then as she gets even older, she can determine whether that quote unquote fold is right for her, or whether she wants to take a different path, adopt a different framework altogether, live life on her terms.
Right. So to make sure I understand it, it's really about your awareness of this mind, body, spirit. And with this awareness, then you show up in the life how you want to be. Is that how you're defining the inner journey?
That is, I would say that my definition of the inner journey will constantly unfold. And I was, again, as I was thinking about this today, yes, it is one's consciousness and one's awareness.
Okay.
But I would also say that we are grounded in multiple other additional factors. So one additional factor over here would be our intention. What is it we want? What is it we want to manifest? And if you take what I just described, it could be, what do I want to manifest in terms of improving my mind, my psychology, improving the consistency and the positive vibrance of my emotions, not denying negative emotions, not repressing them, acknowledging them, but not giving them too much time when you sit at that table for your cup of tea or coffee. Determining an intention for your physical health, determining an intention for the level of connection and spiritual connection you want in your life, whether you believe in a Western God, an Eastern God, no God, whether you think a can of Coke is God, just making it right for you. So intention is one of those areas. And then quite frankly, we human beings are really defined by our habits. So our inner journey, like most other aspects of our life, are going to be defined by our consciousness around our habits and even our awareness and our consciousness of our unconsciousness of when we lapse. You never get perfect in this area. It's all a journey. It is a fulcrum.
Ongoing.
So it's really those two things. One is the more arguably goal-oriented. Okay, well, what do you want to extract from this? What do you want to extract on behalf of those who are around you? And the other is just a grounding in the tactical execution-oriented nature of you never rise above the level of your habits. It just doesn't
Right.
happen.
Right. So to support, using those habits to support your intention,
Correct.
are there any particular habits now that you've used in the past that you recommend in the future that have really contributed to your intention, to you actualizing your intention more and actualizing how you want to show up? What are some of those habits that maybe would be helpful for other people to hear and to know about?
Sure. And some of these habits are ones that I deviate from. Some of them are ones that I have trouble adhering to. But, in the area of mind, I always try and have a good, challenging either book that I'm reading, or if I'm not going to read a given author's book, I will look for a captivating video of them presenting on YouTube. It is uncanny how some of the most captivating nonfiction authors find their way to the Google campus in Mountain View, California, and they participate in Google Talks. So there's a myriad of those talks available. They tend to run from 45 to 75 minutes long, and you can extract good value from those people. I would say that's also the case in the emotion area. It's just being a good reader of books that help us think and expand upon that area of our life. In the area of body, it is, and arguably in the other areas that I just mentioned, it's not just reading the good books, it's putting it into practice. It's getting out. A habit for me is near daily working out and exercise. A habit in terms of spirit is when I follow it, I feel like I don't fall off, which is a regular meditation practice. When I feel like I am falling off, embarking on a gratitude practice. Even if I repeat the same things that I'm grateful for every single day in a journal, what am I grateful for? What am I grateful for right now? I also think an uber practice for many of these areas is a sense of curiosity, of not knowing, of being willing to be wrong and almost looking forward to being wrong so that you can learn. So that curiosity, and then to overcome sort of the increasing perception that I have of societal cynicism, societal negativity, a sense of awe. Like right now, you're somewhere in the hinterlands of Colorado, and I'm in San Carlos, California. And when you and I were in high school 40 years ago, we could have never dreamed of this world right now where, my next door neighbor drives around. Actually, I drive around in a 100% electric car. My neighbor drives around in a 100% electric Tesla car. And just everything that comes with our society today that is so amazingly awe-inspiring.
Oh, that's wonderful. This reminder of curiosity and awe really takes you out of that negativity.
Yeah, it can.
Is there a teacher or one book in particular, or that or song? What's inspired you?
I think the easiest answer to your question would be no. There is not one teacher. There are, and it's just possibly the way my mind works. I literally wrote out, I am looking at a sheet of paper, and I probably have 35 names of people who have influenced me, and many of whom continue to influence me. And I tend to be more of a dabbler. I tend to go shallower and broader versus deeper. But I will say this, in my mid to late 20s, I was not doing well in any sense. I was not doing well from a financial perspective. I was not doing well from an emotional perspective. And I fell upon, Tony Robbins, who then was the king of late night infomercials, and his brand of personal development and self-help. And it was just something that I was completely unfamiliar with in any realm. I wasn't exposed to it from the standpoint of high school sports and high school coaching. Coaches tend to be incredible teachers of personal development. It wasn't something I was exposed to in my upbringing. And so this was just an incredible whole new world. It set me off on a journey at that point. And then I met my wife several years later. We were colleagues at a public relations firm back in Boston. And we didn't get along at first, but over the months we did. I was her boss, actually. And I dropped her off at her apartment one night. We were still purely platonic. And I saw on her bed a copy of Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. And over the period of a
Wow.
few months, that brought us together. And our relationship and marriage has been one of constantly challenging each other and helping each other expand. So she really challenged me and helped me expand in the world of spirituality. She first started with Wayne Dyer, who's another huge figure in my life. And when I first saw Wayne Dyer on public television, I was like, oh, get this guy away from me.
Wow.
I was repelled. And now I can't get enough of him. Then my wife, Heather, brought me into the world of Eckhart Tolle. And I was like, oh. And now I can't get enough I can't get enough from him. A few years ago, we were on the beach in Lake Tahoe, and she was reading a Michael Singer book. Michael Singer wrote, among other books, The Untethered Soul.
Mm-hmm.
And she was reading it and said, I can't get into this book. I can't handle it. I don't like Michael Singer. I can't do it. And it was noisy and distracting. And our daughter, who was, 5 or 6 at the time, was all over her and the both of us. And I picked it up and I read one paragraph and I said, are you kidding me? This is gospel. And I read her the paragraph and she said, how come it's making so much sense the way you read it? I said, take this book, get off the beach, go into a quiet space and read it. So that's sort of been our dance. Here I've just mentioned 3 names. I've mentioned Tony Robbins, I've mentioned Wayne Dyer, I've mentioned Michael Singer. But there are so many more in the world of body, physical exercise. When I was even pre-high school, I fell upon Kenneth Cooper. He's the father of aerobics. Okay, he's probably, if he's still alive, which I believe he is, he's got to be in his early 90s now. I mean, it was like aerobics. And he had this whole point system for various kinds of exercises, et cetera, et cetera. In modern days, there are so many amazing practitioners to tune into. I'm a fan of Rich Roll. I guess he's 53, 54-year-old, ultra endurance, vegan athlete, recovering alcoholic, went to all the right Ivy League schools, et cetera, was a rising lawyer and just, got knocked on his butt, much by his own doing, many a time. And his story, one of recovery and health, is so fascinating. And through his podcast, I've been exposed to so many people in the world of nutrition, ultra endurance athletics, different ways of thinking and composing one's mind to engage in athletic competition or the game of life. So those are just a few miscellaneous names. I would also say Stephen Covey is a master. Used to live in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Maybe rest in peace. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. What I'm always fascinated by with books like his and with people like him is how many people from different walks of life are influenced by him. And then finally, I have not read her book yet, but Carol Dweck.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
And
mindset.
Correct. And her belief in an expansionary, growth-oriented mindset versus a fixed mindset. And again, many of her long talks are available on YouTube, are just so foundational if one is to believe in the power of nurture versus nature. And I believe thinking of the power of nurture versus nature has come a long way since you and I were in school together 40 years ago.
Definitely. It sounds like dabbling has really helped you. And the other piece on that is that sometimes it's about timing, and it's about what happens to show up and what happens to call to you at that time. I have to say, when I look at Eckhart Tolle's book, initially I had to put it down. I was like, what is this? And 5 years later, it made perfect sense.
Yes.
Last 2 questions that relates to this. How is it that you've been able to stay open to all these different thought leaders and suggestions? What was it that made that shift, really? Was it meeting your now wife, or do you think there was more to it than that?
I think it's definitely, you can't overemphasize the importance of having a good partner in life. And if it's not a marriage partner, it could be a business partner, it could be a close friend, a network of friends that encourage you, that prod you along, that stimulate you, and quite frankly, that give you some tough love. But for me, it was also and is also discomfort. I find that when I am closing down, and trust me, I do close down, uh, like so many people,
Right.
I just genuinely feel uncomfortable. And that lack of comfort causes me to wake up just a little bit more. I
Yeah,
hope that answer makes sense. But
it does. It
a lot of
does.
people talk about the art of waking up. And when they talk about it, they say this is something you can do through volition, through will. It's something that may pass you by and may never happen. Or it